I would like once again to raise the subject of how important the human factor is when it comes to building a comprehensive information security system. And to remind you once again why it's so important to reach an agreement. I forgot the clicker. My name is Yekaterina. I'm an architecture of end-to-end projects in positive technologies now. And before that, I used to work in different companies on both sides of the barrier. So I know all the pain points regarding the interaction between all these departments, as well as anybody else. This is my first presentation in such a large conference. I do some teaching in a university, do some training, but please bear with me. I'll probably be a bit nervous because it's my first presentation in such a big conference. So I apologize beforehand. Why is it so important? The time when strict rules were solving problems is gone. And now this infamous computer in a bunker with a man with a rifle at the perimeter, of course, it does allow you to reduce the threat model to almost zero, but the usability also gets there as well. It's time to understand that nobody is prepared to work in such conditions. Everybody wants to use modern technologies, distributed system, remote access, and collaboration. Another important thing is that in reasonably closed enterprises, you get project workstations and remote access for service organizations and other gimmicks. So we have lots of teams, products, and we need to somehow keep being friends and also trying to make sure that it's safe and secure. And potentially it's only going to grow. Of course, it's a hackneyed theme. It's been discussed more than 20 years, and the situation is still there. And more likely than not, it'll keep being relevant forever. It's a broad topic, so let there be a holy war, that's what the slide says. So it's important. I don't claim to be the final instance, the ultimate, to say the ultimate truth. I just suggest to discuss it once again and maybe offer some ways of solving it that help me in my own experience. So why it's so important? Why is the IT department so important? Security in an organization depends on every employee, but the interaction between IT and information security is quite controversial and typical. In one of the conversations where I was discussing the topic of my presentation, they told me that the IT department can also believe. So many other departments can be regarded as IT, marketing people and designers. In my presentation, when I say IT, I mean people who are directly working on implementation and support and deployment of the infrastructure in the organization. So therefore, it's on them that more responsibility resides compared to employees of other departments. So to be very brief, if your IT department hates information security people, then you're doing something wrong. And that's exactly what happens most of the time. Everything is burning around you, everybody is running about, everybody is shouting, requiring attention. And security people, security is always pushed to the back, and nobody wants to spend their efforts on them. The problems when building an interaction between IT and IS come from both sides. Both departments, both units have a lot of complaints about each other. And apart from a million other reasons, it all boils down to the different motivation. So IT is about everything to work, and IS is about everything to work safely, securely. And of course, there are technical and organizational issues that are important, that because more often than not, we have a chaos in processes. The responsibility division is quite controversial, where everybody is shifting responsibility on each other. And sometimes there may even be a problem in terms of hierarchy. IT or IS, who's more important, whom we have to listen to. And also, there are human problems as well. There's a lot of workload for both IT and IS systems, a great pool of work, no time, lack of competencies, and most importantly, in order to implement products and systems for information security, you can't do without information technology professionals. So what are the ways to motivate IS? It's not my picture. I took this picture from Alexei Lukatsky's blog. And basically, if even the most famous people in the field are using these pictures, then who am I to argue? Actually, the ban-based information security is only good when requirements are verified automatically. If in this chain between implementation and infrastructure, there's human factor involved. So it's then that where the problem starts, questions and negative attitude. Now human-faced security has coming into vogue. Is becoming more result-oriented and more efficacious. So what can be done? In 1984, Karen Pryor wrote the book, Don't Growl at Your Dog. She wrote a lot about how to train pets. She knew a lot about that because she was one of the most famous dog trainers at that time. I started to read this book when I was trying to find a common language with my dog. But I found a lot of interesting things for my personal life and work. I was caught by the phrase there that if you scold your dog every time, it will only behave as you expect it to be when you're present. Otherwise, it won't. And because we're not going to have the time and effort, the time and capacity to keep an eye on everybody all the time. This is the reason why it's so important to substantiate the desired behavior. So it's not chance that this Captain Smollett appeared in front of all of us that says that there are no desire or resources at the other side of the barricade, and who else but us? And if we do need to draw analogies with army, we need a person like a preacher, to help us do that. Of course, a search for the culprit will not bring you to the result. If you want to get rid of the problem, you have to get rid of the reason why people behave this way, rather than to find a scapegoat. But on the whole, playing a good and bad cop is quite a working topic. But in order to build an effective interaction with the adjacent unit, you need to make it so that it's not you who is playing the bad cop. So we have cyber criminals, hackers, administrative fines, and errors and non-compliance measures. You need to play the role of the good cop. Well, giving the role of a good cop to the supervisory bodies is a slippery road. They, as any government body trying to regulate human activities, they are always for everything good, as they say, and against everything bad, but more likely than not, they're just used. So you can scare a bit, but scare with the checks from the regulators, but don't be scared yourself. On the whole, one human error is enough for a hacker to steal people's money, data, or access. And the main thing is that it becomes easier for people to collaborate if there's a common enemy. On the whole, it's very work-intensive to explain to the adjacent unit why they don't only need to do their own job, but also another set of work for the sake of their neighbors. If you're a big boss, of course, you can, put your foot down and say, this is the way it should be done. But basically, even this position has a lot of pitfalls. What if you rank and file employee, if you're a SOC employee, if you're exactly the person who is doing everything for everyone, then what to do about that? That's a more difficult category problem. So the first thing I suggest you do is to define the goal. In any interaction with an adjacent unit, you have some goal, and sometimes it becomes quite easy to go away from it to other discussions. So first, we define the purpose and the goal of interaction with your counterpart and keep to that. Also, you have to understand that there will be unhappy people all the time, because the motivation of different units is different, so therefore questions or some negative attitudes will always be there. More than that, and you have to make peace with that. You have to accept this. And not pay too much attention to that. But you should focus your attention on those who are prepared to collaborate. Any event, they will have to be and focus on those people who are prepared to walk their half of the road to meet you. You can't make everybody's life good. You can only focus on your own work in positive conditions. Well, unfortunately, you probably won't be able to get perfect conditions around you. There will be a shortage in specialists and professionals around you, and processes will not be perfect. And the process covers everything, says everything from documents to pen tests, without your mother and daddy to help you. So you need to delineate your area of responsibility according to your job description and to work within it in your interaction. Now, every system is unique, and you need a personalized approach to each system. There are more and more security problems coming up, and administering them is becoming more and more difficult. Also, you have to understand that security people are responsible for documents, network security, and even are part of DevOps and pest activity. You can't be good at everything. If IT people are working with things every day, they have the experience, they can use that in their daily work, then IS specialists have a lot of other things to do, and they just can't know the entire infrastructure very deeply. That's why it's so important to network with colleagues, to share life hacks, to collect ideas from everyone, and to create platforms for their discussion so as to share them, and so on.
Now, next is meeting as art. If you feel that several people or several professionals have different points of view, or maybe they have a desire and the need to speak up, we have to provide a forum. We have to provide them with such an opportunity. Please do not try to speak everything or make everything like in one meeting. If you haven't finalized, okay, you have to appoint another meeting. I know that it's a danger to get bogged down in all these conversations and negotiations. But if you have a whole bunch of people who would like to speak up, and also they have like a negative mindset about a particular situation, that at the very beginning of our meeting we describe a goal, like what's the point of us getting together, and then we make like a status update, what we've decided. If we haven't decided anything, it's okay, but it's important to just, jot some bullet points what this meeting was about. And at the end of the meeting, I always say, like, if I forgot something, if I didn't say, if I misunderstood, please write me an email within, let's say, a week. And so you limit the time frame when these people can come to you, hey, you've misunderstood us, we meant totally different thing, and things like that. Please remember that people treat artifacts differently. That's why you have to have the meeting minutes, and you have the goal of the meeting to send an artifact that you could go back to the future as a proof of what you've were speaking about. And always there'll be some dissent, and people will not always be happy. There's not much we can do about that, only possibly to accept it. Basically, in today's world, not everybody's so conscious and so polite. Sometimes when you get feedback from your colleagues, it is difficult to see the essence and see the reasoning among the even insults and just a bunch of baloney. Please do not think that everybody is dumb, but as a statistician, like how many times people have asked this question, and also because you're like taking the list of feedback or a bunch of problems, try to reformulate this feedback and also to approve it with those what people wrote, and also to write it down on the public resource with the name of the people. It will discipline them. And also, the better you'll be able to prove to people that you are safe to send the feedback to, and even the stupid questions can be asked to you, the people will be more open, and that means that we can have a better positive result of our mutual communication. Now, the biggest problem that I've heard in my experience when working with IT departments, people say, we don't have time. But as a matter of fact, now, fortunately or unfortunately, the way companies are set up, that the time is the most valuable resource. When you deploy the product on the market, you implement some feature, all of these will impact the benefits and budget of the company. Speaking about governmental organization, basically, it's not about money, it's about some kind of punishment measures. If you don't meet the deadline, something bad is going to happen with you. So actually, we always short of time. It's always hard to find time in our modern world. So we say, yes, you're absolutely right. there's never enough hours in the day, where the scope is huge, even if you don't believe this, and even if nobody believes that in your company, and you understand that your counterparty may be very high positioned person in a company, but you are here to discuss your goal and try to narrow down your desired outcome. And also you can ask, what would you simplify? What would make it easier for you to implement this or that if they're saying, oh, I don't have enough time? Basically, people like when we ask of their opinion. And secondly, this particular issue, this question helps us not to focus on a problem, but on ways to overcome this situation or a problem. And please put it in writing. Because when we leave these artifacts or statistics or meeting minutes or I don't know, the notes, it helps us to understand our issues better. And it helps our conversant party to see that we put something down and we're going to keep this in mind. Next, personal responsibility is always affecting people. As soon as you begin to generalize in your conversation, it looks like nobody is responsible. It will be harder to make a deal. So when you put all the claims and objections or proposals in writing, please put a name next to each proposal with a name and family name, last name. And if in some information system this could be done automatically in Jira, Confluence, if in your company you don't have this kind of record-keeping system, you can literally jot it down in your notepad, but with a name against each proposal or complaint. And probably you do not have any control over the work time of the other division. And if you're like on fire, you want to do it, you want to get it, that's great. But you cannot expect the same mindset from the other people. The only thing we can do is to collect data, what they don't have time for, how often they don't have time for it, and then to escalate it to your management. And overall, any complaints, this is how I deal with them. First of all, we agree. Yeah, we're all adults. And supposedly, we have to understand how can we do right things, and when we don't have to be friends with our colleagues. But actually, friendly relations at work is good, but it's not mandatory, as long as we have comfortable business relationship. And for that, we have to understand what kind of desired outcome we want to achieve. And then we always have to agree, just nod and say, yeah, you see, I understand, it's very hard for you, and you believe this to be a problem, I agree with you. Then we'll limit the zone of our responsibility. I'm responsible for information security and for the total well-being. This is not what I'm responsible for. And in the end, we ask them, what could make it easier for you to follow the information security measures and the instructions? Not 100% better, but at least 1% better. All in all, building information security processes in the company, it's a kind of time-consuming process. It takes a long time. You need both authority from the higher-ups and financing and the right team and many other ingredients. Again, we never have a perfect timing, so we have to focus on what can be done here and now. And this is why the new hip thing is not to write just general guidelines, but to focus attention and to think what can be improved in our infrastructure today, in this particular specific moment we're living in. And try to make sure that your requirements for the IT department would be as easy as possible. Write this instruction with pictures, personalize them, make them easier. And speaking about the software for your infrastructure, and all the way until who needs to go where and ask what about particular cases or situations. Next, have conversations with your new employees and tell them, what are your expectations and how you do the process of information security in your company. And also, it would be great if you can tell them where can find all those manuals and where can they send their questions to, or to come up with their proposals. As we say, if you don't the law, it does not relieve you of the responsibility. But we need to make sure that all the professionals from the friendly departments would know where to find those laws and rules and regulations and know how to comply with them. And also, try to explain as much as you can of why certain behaviors are desired and even necessary, and try to make it personal for each of the departments, so that these expectations would not be would not sound like crazy and outlandish, but would basically make sense for those professionals. And also, don't be lazy and inform them, these guys, using their personal channels. Personal communication always works better. So any strict measures, let's try to automate them and leave like a good cop role for ourselves, and bad cop should be automated. Of course, we all know that any conversations about implementing new security measures, it becomes with trying to scare people. But how can we make them more efficient? First of all, it's a frequency. The more often you and your company have heard about any cases of hacks and leaks and other unauthorized events and their consequences, the more we have conversations, the more discussions we have about them, the more people will think about security in their everyday operations. Use some examples from your field. And usually what we hear is about like a major cases when company crashed and things are really bad, and it was a huge scandal, and it's all on the pages of magazines and websites, Of course, these kind of cases could be very indicative, but oftentimes they are too far away from the nature and specific of your company's organization in your department. That's why it would be great to look for similar cases, maybe smaller in scope, but those would be who you could identify with. For example, if you're in medicine, let's try to study the cases of when medical offices have been hacked. If you're in transportation, try to look for leaks and stories about hacks in transportation. Also, we need the format should be accessible and easy. That would not make any sense to show any documents on Chinese, like Chinese hieroglyphs, to those who do not speak Chinese. In the same way, that would not make any sense to talk about the new CVE for 2017-56-38 to people who have no idea of what it is and work with this. Even the InfoSec guys are going to go and Google what this CVE exactly means and how it can be operated and so on. Try to make it affordable and accessible in terms of terminology and presentation. Also, we have to cover consequences. If Active Directory has been hacked, you probably cannot say that this is the end of the world. If there'll be a breach and compromise of Active Directory, probably world is going to be more or less the same. And few people can believe that, hey, this is just all horrible and we're all gonna die. But if we say that Active Directory compromised, that is very difficult to recover from, and this will be more close to reality. What I like is an example. I got this example from this one's particular source, Analyzing Genetical Information 23andMe company. In October of 2023, there was a leak, quite a huge information leaks from the company, and the company did not recognize this leak. I guess from their database, right? And immediately after that, shares of the company dropped by 15%, 1.5. And frankly, it's a quite good illustration for a story about these unauthorized events, because basically, it doesn't matter who is to blame, whether it's IT department or InfoSec guys. InfoSec guys can say, no, IT is to blame. They can point fingers to one another, but as a matter of fact, we have an unauthorized incident and money, and company has lost money or reputation. And actually, these are immediate consequences that the company has suffered, and these could be traced and measured within a month, for example. After quite a big news and news from the internet. If you look now, back or in the beginning of 2025, the company actually filed for bankruptcy, I mean 23andMe. This company no longer exists. Probably there were some other reasons for the company going down, but I think this could be one of the big rocks that actually sunk, that ship.
Где же их искать?
Now, where do we look for them? Actually, in Russian legislation, there are some requirements about publishing leaks. Again, this is not like a super hyped up topic, so to be able to find specific examples in narrow fields is not an easy task. So we can always look at the blogs with the information IT or information security topics. What I was looking for, cases like that, oftentimes in different news outlets, you cannot find sources, and you have to trust this particular news media. But now in our world, it's very difficult to do because of all the fake news and stuff. So now we have a lot of online blogs with the information security. They give sources for example, Telegram channels or VK groups where you can source it. Also on the sides of very big players on the market, on the information security market, like Positive Technologies and Kaspersky and also InfoWatch, they all have these kind of publications, as well as other media when a story could be very big, very hyped up. You can always find these kind of cases. Also, the Positive Technology company in the last year has issued a map of industrial-specific PT events, unauthorized events. And this is so convenient that you can personalize and you can see what unauthorized events would be more relevant to you and what you do. And this has become so popular and so convenient for the market that even Ministry of Digital Development, like Russian regulatory body, they have developed their own methodology in terms of building the list of these kind of unauthorized and unaccessible events. Yeah. What do we do with user base? If we scare people in the right way, so to say, of course they will be following your expectations, but not for the long term. And so in this way also, a positive reinforcement, like in psychology, is working better than any negative scaremongering and trying to scare people. Try to make deals with users and make sure that following rules of information security would be easy, would be sensible, and also involved or made a part of these daily routines. A quick checkup about all I've said before. And just make sure that people can send or address their questions on your beta website or something else. And also all the questions and proposals should be personalized. And also you have information who asked, you have their credentials, you have their data. And also in this game, good and bad cop, make sure that you're playing good cop, not a bad cop. And try to personalize all the responsibility and make sure that you follow latest events and keep everybody in the loop, especially your colleagues. And let's, like this cat Leopold from the cartoon said, let's stay friends, let's be friendly. That's it. Put a like and press the button, and I'll be happy all of your feedback and questions.
Катя, спасибо большое. Вопросик, Катя.
Thank you, Katya. Any questions? Yes, it looks like we have a lifted hand. I also have a question. I also want to ask something.
Так, Катя, это даже лучший вопрос, но точно не мне.
Now, Katya, this is the book for the best question. Hello. Thank you for the presentation. And this is my question. You've emphasized that we need to be super attentive to those employees who agree with your rules and recommendations. No, not quite willing to cooperate. They're willing to cooperate. This is important. Not agree, but willing to cooperate. But those who are not willing to cooperate, very often they're the most proactive in the company. That's true. This is true. And what do we do with that? How do we deal with these kind of people? Because they may have their negative influence, even those who are willing to cooperate. There is no one universal answer, and probably I won't be able to give it to you. Well, my way is to collect everybody when I see that there are some negatively minded people who are willing to speak up. It's also important, because in the modern IT landscape, there are many people who are complaining, we have so many problems, we have so many challenges, but at the same time, when you offer, okay guys, let's talk, let's discuss it, they say, no, that's not my problem, and I'm gonna just sit back and be silent. If you have people like that, then I have a meeting, I have a call with everybody who is involved. I'm writing them before, email them the goal and what we want to discuss. First of all, it's a formality. We have digital trace that we've tried to resolve this problem. And also, if you have a goal, then this like a call and communication is not going to go into nowhere. We have to be focused on our goal. And then throughout my call, I'm keeping my notes, I'm writing everything down, who has what problems or what questions with specific names. And then, as a result, I'm writing basically like a minutes of the meeting. I've had a record, I've had 3 meetings for people to accept it, people who are maybe antagonistic to accept it, and we were able to talk through some issues and problems, and it's about, eternally that he began to ask this question after question, and we came to some point of agreement. He was not super happy, but he said, yeah, probably this is the best way forward. And for me, this was enough. And I've also made a digital trace, a minutes, we've tried to discuss it in these kind of terms and conditions, and this is the best option, this and that. And this is a working document. Of course, you can change it, you can upgrade it, you can have other meetings, follow-up meetings, but this is also helpful. Any other questions, colleagues, please? Yeah, right here. Yeah, Ekaterina, thank you. Very good job, thank you. You have a very, very bright future in presentations. Don't worry about anything. You're going to do great. My question is as follows. And probably it's also going to be about integrators and regular customers. Sometimes we have situations when IT, information security, they have different goals. And their bosses were not giving them one common goals for 2 divisions, but still they have to pursue the same goal in the company. And they're like cat and dogs, fighting the IT and IS. Probably you need some kind of facilitator to be able to reconcile these 2 departments. Who could be this kind of moderator in organization, not to represent either of these departments, IT and information security departments? Well, basically, the management of the company is in charge of all the operational things. It's, the boss should communicate it to every department, and operational processes should be built in such a way so that it would be comfortable for everyone. Again, nothing is perfect in this world, and as for myself, I do not like to work in this senior management kind of cohort. I'm trying to avoid it. But as a technical professional, I've been working within the scope of my responsibilities. I cannot make everybody happy in the company. And as a part of what I do, I have a certain outcome, to make good things better. And I'm trying to make the most of what I can to achieve this goal of mine. I apologize, there is no microphone.
Да, я, если честно, считаю, что
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I believe.
Вообще от каждого.
I believe that it depends. It's like a person specific, so I do not like when people say, hey, I'm just a little guy in information security, you know, I'm just a small officer. Let's the upstairs decide. Yes, upstairs should decide. But each of us can also do something small, as small, however small it may be. For IT guys, not to consider everybody their enemies, you know, evil guys, and demanding impossible from them. I always try to do whatever I do within my scope of responsibilities. Dear colleagues, any other questions, please, if any? Well, if I may just provide one short comment. I've seen it more than once, even participated when a company invites an external facilitator person or a coach if there is a very serious conflict between the IT and information security departments. And these specialized or specially trained people usually provide very big help. So if you have a situation like that, I think this option could be a very viable option for your company. Now, Katya, I have the following question for you. You've suggested all of us, and you said that, you know, like a good and bad cop, it's good, but you guys have to be a good cop. And who then will be a bad cop? I have the whole slide about that. Of course, we have cyber criminals, those evil individuals who want to steal money, steal credentials, access confidential information, and on it goes. And secondly, we have those hack events, unauthorized events. Speaking about business, that means that they can lose like 50% of their stock or shares. This would be something that business cannot afford. We also have penalties of our regulatory bodies who are also have their own standards and checkups and inspections, you name it. So are you trying to say that this bad cop in this metaphor is always outside of the organization? Yeah, I got it. Yeah, hopefully this is the case. Thank you. One more question from the colleagues. Microphone, please. Thanks, Ekaterina, for your presentation. You've mentioned about scaring people in the right way. How can we scare people in the right way as opposite to scaring them in the wrong way or frightening them? What if you've scared people to death and that's it? I mean, no leverage. You're trying to frighten them with kind of criminal liabilities, etc. But okay, you don't have any leverage. You got to do something differently. This scaring doesn't work anymore. Or maybe we should speak about the rehabilitated users. You know, after you scare them, you know, you gotta have somehow to rehabilitate them. Yeah, of course, I was being sarcastic. Hopefully you know, because in view of all the previous experiences of InfoSec, it's more about no, what you cannot do. And in this case, sometimes you have to hype up this fear. But again, the Karen Breyer, she wrote in her book that if you're scolding your dog too much, at some point your dog does not care anymore. And you end up in a situation where the user understands, yeah, probably it's scary, probably I'm surrounded by enemies, but at the same time, I simply cannot follow up all these rules. It doesn't make any sense. And in this case, this Lukatsky had this kind of like a rabbit and carrot situation. I want organizations to popularize information security and to look for ways of how to implement it so that this implementation would take the least amount of time and the least amount of energy. And of course, we've got to stay in touch with the users and say, hey, what would be good for you? because, look for any ideas, on your own. That would be very challenging. It's much easier to copy it from your environment, to be able just to simply copy it from people around you. You have to make sure that the users would not be afraid to come up to you, would not be afraid to talk to you and to ask maybe even stupid questions and come up with a kind of foolish proposals, like I'm like a good InfoSec evangelist in a way. Well, dear colleagues, let's once again give a round of applause to Katya for a very life-affirming presentation. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot. Please give a book for the best question.